me introduce Kirsten Lombard. Kirsten Lombard has been a Wisconsin grassroots organizer for the past 5 years. She is engaged in the fight against Common Core and other false education reforms since 2013. That same year, she founded Resounding Books, an issue-based publishing company and political action committee. The company's first publication, a book of essays entitled Common Ground and Common Core that we've talked about, is available soon. Including voices from across the political spectrum, the book provides a powerful, nonpartisan tool for helping anyone to understand the realities of Common Core, regardless of ideology and political affiliation. Kirsten resides in Madison. She holds a special committee PhD in historical environmental design, interior and landscape from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, 09, and a Bachelor of Arts in psychology from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, 1988. She is an outstanding editor and publisher. She has been a pleasure to get to know and work with. Please welcome me in welcoming Kirsten.
By the trends that I see. I have a grassroots group that I work with in the Madison area, and we got involved in the Common Core fight early in 2013. And we have been pleased and proud and privileged to be in that fight. We have been deeply involved in the open letters that have gone out to state legislators. We have been talking to as many people as we could at the Capitol. We have done our networking with groups across the state. We are strongly invested. Unfortunately, what turns out to be the case is that there is a disconnect going on between the grassroots and the people at the Capitol in Madison, with the exception of a very small handful of legislators. And I'm pleased that a couple of them are here today, so thank you very much for being here, Senator Farrow and Representative Kanoto. We are watching a very disturbing trend with leadership at the Capitol, where it doesn't matter how much we scream and holler, well, politely anyway, about the problems that we're seeing coming down the pike with Common Core. They're not hearing us yet. And leadership will only let the good legislators who really want to stop this go so far. Good things are being stopped in their tracks right now by leadership. That is the reality of the situation. And maybe the good legislators won't tell you that because they can't, but I will. I will tell you that. So that is where we are. That is where we are. Where do we need to get? We need Common Core gone. We need it gone. Well, how do we get there? Because basically what's been happening is that we've got two parties working up at the Capitol. The Democrats aren't listening. Mostly the Republicans aren't listening. We have a bunch of legislators who are sort of on the fence right now, trying to figure out which way the wind is going to blow, and they're going to go whichever way the wind blows. And we have not reached a critical mass yet in terms of public pressure. Basically, what's been happening is that we have been getting marginalized. The Democrats aren't in power, so they have no vested interest in this, really. The Republicans are marginalizing Common Core as a Tea Party issue, or as like a lunatic fringe issue. And so you have this small handful of good legislators trying to get good things done, but they can't get the support they need. They can't get it from the critical mass. We don't have critical mass in the public yet, and they don't have the support from leadership. So we're stuck. Well, that caused me a significant amount of frustration as a grassroots organizer, as you can probably imagine. And one of the things that happened for me is that I began to realize that if we were ever going to achieve critical mass in this state, Well, we were going to have to start holding hands with some folks that we might not ordinarily hold hands with if we were going to generate that public pressure. And I don't know about you, but I am really, really tired of being told who I can work with and who I can't, who I can talk to and who I can't, who will talk to me and who won't, who will work with me and who won't. Because you know what? It's all a lie. It's all a lie. And who benefits from that lie? I'll tell you who benefits from it. The people in Washington benefit from it, the corporations who are backing Common Core benefit from it, and the legislators in Madison, and the governor right now is benefiting from it, because if they can marginalize us, if they can marginalize this issue, they don't have to deal with it. They can push an agenda through that's simple for them. Well, it's not good for us, and it sure as heck isn't good for the kids in this state. And so we are going to have to stop it. The question is, how do we do that? How do we get there? I think there are three things that we need to talk about in that vein, and one of them is relationship. This is how the book Common Ground on Common Core happened, is that I got tired. I got tired of being told who I could talk to and who I couldn't. I'll tell you a couple of stories. About a year or a year and a quarter ago, a friend of mine suggested to me that I really ought to be talking to a gentleman who was the new Dean of Education at Edgewood College in Madison. Somebody who identifies as a liberal progressive. And I said, okay, I'll talk to anybody. And so Mr. Horn and I went to speak with this new Dean of Education at Edgewood. And I don't think any of us, I think all of us were a little trepidatious about how that meeting was going to go, because, you know, I'm a small L libertarian who works within the Republican Party, and Jeff is very much along those lines, and here we were sitting across the table from a liberal progressive. Well, that's not a normal situation, particularly in this state with the challenges that we've had over the last few years. Things have gotten very polarized. That is a challenge that we have. It's already challenging in other states. It's more challenging here in Wisconsin because of the things we've been through over the last 3 or 4 years. And the most amazing thing happened at that meeting. I'm going to tell you, we discovered we liked each other. We had a good time. We had coffee and a long conversation, and we found out we had a lot in common, and that we liked each other as people, not just as potential colleagues, but as people. And that is the kind of relationship that we are going to have to build if we are going to win not just a battle in this state, but the war nationwide. We are going to have to build relationships with each other. We're going to have to start talking to each other, to people that we're not used to talking to. But I guarantee you that if you take the time to do it, you're going to make friends. Nancy Pesky, sitting over there, one of the organizers of this event. You're a dues-paying Democrat, are you not, Nancy? Or you vote as a Democrat? Nancy and I like each other a lot. Tim Slecker and Jen Hopkins at Edgewood College and I like each other a lot. Some of the people that I approached for the book that I am editing, that will be out hopefully any day now, a lot of those people identify, some of them as radical leftists, some of them as Democrats, some of them as all kinds of things. They literally do cover the entire spectrum. And there's not one of the people in that book that I couldn't find something in common with, that I didn't like, and that I don't really enjoy personally as a result of having worked with them on this book. So, relationship is one of the things we have to build. But how do you do that? Because, we're not used to talking to each other. So how does that work? I think a lot of us are very used to talking at each other. We talk at each other, we tell each other things, but we don't ask questions, and we don't listen. We're entrenched in our position, we're entrenched in our perspective, in our point of view, and we're not asking questions and we're not listening. We're not really having a dialogue. We gotta have a dialogue. And I'm gonna tell you a little secret. It's something that I like to share with people. Questions are one of the best tools you have in building relationship.
Why is that? And Dr. Carey, you can back me up on this, I hope. Because the brain handles questions very differently than it handles statements. A lot of what you do is already pre-programmed. It's already back in your subconscious. And when somebody says something to you, your subconscious aligns to it instantaneously. And if it is not comfortable for you, what you're hearing, you are going to shut down to it almost immediately. There will be no further discussion. It's too uncomfortable. You'll walk away. Or the person that you're talking to, the person that you're telling something to, will walk away. But what happens when you ask a question? Well, that is something the brain actually has to process. It can't just walk away. Your brain might be frightened by the question, but it actually has to process it. It's kind of like planting a virus in a computer. It starts undoing all sorts of bad things that are already back there. So, ask questions. But I'm not talking about gotcha questions. I'm not talking about asking questions where you can at the end of it say, "See, I told you so." I'm talking about real, honest, conversational questions, learning to understand each other, figuring out where the other one is, and actually discovering through that questioning process and the listening that comes with it, that you actually have common ground with somebody. And I guarantee you're going to find out that you do. How many of you are talking to your neighbors? How many of you are talking to your coworkers? How many of you are talking to your family members who maybe don't agree with you ideologically or politically, but who might agree with you if you just stripped away the partisan rhetoric, if you stripped away the lingo, if you stripped away the emotionally charged terms and just started talking to them about issues that matter and that probably matter to you both. Things change when you do that. So, again, are we asking and listening to each other, or are we talking and telling? We need to be asking and listening. I think we also need to talk about commitment. So the first thing I talked about is relationship. The second thing is commitment. And what are we talking about being committed to? We need to be committed to principles first and foremost. Those of us who are in this room, we're going to be trailblazers. This is not an easy fight. Anybody in this room who's already told you this is not going to be an easy fight, they're absolutely right. And as a grassroots organizer, I can tell you this is the hardest fight I've fought in 5 years. And it is not going to get one overnight. But we have to be committed to the fight. We can't give up. And we have to be committed to principles. Not to politicians, not to personalities, not to parties, to principles. And what's the first and foremost principle? That we will not allow the children of this state to be damaged. That's a principle that we stand on. We also have to be committed to each other. And that's why building a relationship is so important. Because if we don't have that foundation of trust, that foundation of understanding, our relationships are going to crumble. And then the people in Madison and the people in Washington and the administrators who are pushing this and everybody else, they win. The people who are pushing Common Core win. We have to be solid. We have to be committed to each other. We also need courage. That's the third thing. What do we have to be courageous about? We have to be courageous enough to speak out. And some people in this state are already doing that, but a whole lot more people need to get brave and be willing to stand up. Teachers, if there are any of you out there in this audience today, or if there are any of you who are viewing this after the fact on video, I know you're scared. Because your jobs are now tied to this mess. And if you open your mouths, there are consequences for you. But we are not going to win this battle without teachers opening their mouths. You're going to need to get brave. You're going to need to be courageous. Parents, you are going to need to get brave. You are going to need to get brave enough to tell the administrator who's telling you to sit down and shut up or just to accept it or whatever. No, I won't. No, I won't. And to say that repeatedly. You're going to need to get brave. As citizens, we need to get brave talking to our legislators and to our governor who have allowed this to go through. They've allowed it. You cannot make an omelet without breaking eggs. A friend of mine and I have recently been discussing old sayings. Well, there's one for you. You cannot make an omelet without breaking eggs. And we're going to need to break some serious eggs to get this done. You heard Dr. Thompson, you heard Dr. Statsky, and you heard Dr. Horn all talk about the need for civil disobedience. I am echoing that to the rafters. Civil disobedience, saying no, saying this is what we will tolerate, this we will not tolerate under any circumstances. Come after me if you will, but you will not get me to budge. We need to be that courageous. So that's another thing we have to be courageous about is standing. Being courageous to speak out, to call out, to stand. Those are all important. What are our relationships that we are going to build going to do for us? What is that going to do? I think we need to ask that question as well. There's an interesting phenomenon that I have noted that happens along the political spectrum, the gamut of the political spectrum. And maybe some of you have noticed this too. And it's an oversimplification to a degree, but I think it's an important observation. People who identify on what we typically think of as the political left have become very, very concerned over the years with the abuses of corporations, of big business. Evil corporations. We hear that phrase a lot, right? And people who identify on the so-called right have concerned themselves primarily with the abuses of big government, the intrusiveness of big government. Well, this is part of our problem, is that we have specialized. We have divided our concerns. What if we were all right? What if all of us were correct? We are. What happens if we start holding hands? What happens if we start talking? And what happens if we start sharing the information that we've all collected about the abuses of big government, about the abuses of big corporations, and how they are not just operating independently of one another, but holding hands? This is public-private partnership, my friends, and it is always a lose for the citizen. We are told that it is efficient government. More efficient government, public-private partnership. And I'm sad to say that on the right, we've been told what a wonderful thing this is, that if business is involved, it must be a good thing. No. No. It is fascism. Let us talk about the technical definition of fascism. It is when big government and big business hold hands to circumvent the voice and the rights and dig into the pocketbooks of the people. It is always at the expense of the people. It is public-private partnership that is driving Common Core at its root. We see Bill Gates and all the money that he has poured in. He's not alone. He may be the biggest single investor, but he is not alone. IBM, Cisco, other technology companies who are going to make billions off of the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure for Common Core, are also embracing Common Core and pushing it forward. Other education companies like Pearson Publishing or 1,000 other education software developers all stand to make billions off of Common Core, and they are pushing this. And it is the force of government which is allowing them to make those billions, because the federal government and our state governments in compliance with the federal government are facilitating it. They are facilitating the data mining. They are facilitating the data collection. They are facilitating all of this mess, the brain disorganization of our children that Dr. Thompson is talking about. They're facilitating it together. So we need to understand that, and we need to share information with each other. That is one of the big benefits of starting to hold hands, starting to talk to each other, is that we get the combined insights of those on the left and those on the right. We also get to share the load, because you know what, this is a big job. Now, not once I can't do it by themselves. There's just too much work to be done. We're going to have to share the load. And when we are holding hands and we're talking to each other, we can start to figure out how to do that, how to divide tasks. Some of us are good at some things, some are good at others. We can figure out how to divide tasks so we can be more effective in reaching that critical mass of public pressure that we are going to have to achieve to get where we need to go. Also, we are going to need to encourage and reinforce one another, because this battle is going to get ugly. We are trailblazers. This gym is not full today. I wish that it was. We did a heck of a job getting people here. This is a great start, but we need 3 or 4 times as many people at an event like this in 6 months. That's what we have to have happen. We need to spread this like wildfire. We need to be lighting brush fires all over the place. And when it starts to get hot, because it's going to, there are going to be legislators and administrators and federal officials and all sorts of other people who start pointing fingers at us and trying to take us to task. We don't know what's going to happen here. It's going to get ugly. I promise you that. And those of us who are on the front lines are going to take the first hits. But if we are standing together, shoulder to shoulder, it will be much easier to endure those hits. I'm going to give you a little word picture. In the Bible, I don't know how many of you read your Bibles, but I do. And in Ephesians, there's an amazing picture of spiritual armor. And one of the things that is very interesting about that spiritual armor is that Paul is basing it on the uniform of a Roman centurion. And one of the pieces that he talks about is a shield. And in Roman times, in the time that Paul was writing, Roman shields were designed to be linked together. So that as arrows were coming in, the soldiers could link their shields and create an effective barrier against those arrows. If we are holding hands, if we are standing shoulder to shoulder, and if we are linking shields, we're going to be okay. We are going to make it through. And we are going to create the path for the next bunch of people coming up. As implementation goes in this year, there are going to be a lot more screaming children. There are going to be a lot more screaming parents. And I'm sorry to say there are going to be a lot more screaming teachers and taxpayers as well. It's all of us. We're going to be screaming. Nobody is going to escape this unscathed. This is going to be a mess for everybody. And on some level, that's unfortunate. And those of us who were involved in the letter writing campaigns, the open letters that were sent, that was our goal. We were trying to warn legislators. We were trying to warn the governor. We were trying to warn people in this state about what was coming. We were looking at what was happening in the state of New York, in the state of Kentucky, the mess that was unfolding there. We were trying to warn them. Make this stop now before it gets to that point. We didn't get heard. We got some hearings, and that's as far as we got. So now implementation is going in. As we speak, implementation has happened. And it is going to unfold throughout the year, and it is going to cause pain. There's no way to avoid it now. The pain is coming. But the good news is that if we are standing shoulder to shoulder, if we are holding hands, if we are doing the things that we need to do together, as that screaming starts, we become the beacons. We become the people who know the answers. They come to us, and they join our cause. And the critical mass that we need is reached. That is what we need. That is what we need. So again, I would encourage you, if you are not already, to be talking to your neighbors, to your coworkers, to your family members. I don't care what political strike they are. Throw away the lingo, throw away the partisan rhetoric, just talk to them about issues and ask searching, honest, open questions. Find the common ground and let's get this done.